Welcome to my channel, Goalball Tournaments portrayed by Ernst Kreusel. The last time I talked about the second division of the German Goalball League. Now I talk again about the Paralympic Games, the teams who will start at the Paralympic Games 2021 in Tokyo. I have to portray two teams in the women's division. Today I start with the first one. That's the United States of America. The United States of America has a history which started almost 40 years ago. In 1982, they had her first big tournament. Now I talk about the long history of the USA women's team. At first I talk about the competitions at the World Championships. The first time they competed at the World Championship was in 1982 in Indianapolis, in their home country. They won their World Championship. They took the gold medal. They also won the World Championship 1986. That means they won the title back-to-back in 1982 and 1986. In 1990, in Calgary, Canada, they finished second. They won the silver medal. In 1994, in Colorado Springs, they finished 8th. That was a dark chapter in the history of the USA women's goalball. But they fighted back, and in Madrid, in Spain, in 1998, they returned into the top of the world with winning the bronze medal. In 2002 in Rio, they took her third World Championship title. 2006 in Spartanburg, they won the third place, took the bronze medal. In Sheffield 2010, they won all her pool games in the prelim round, and in the end they finished second behind China. 2014, they finished 4th place in the prelim round. That means they don't won every game like in 2010, but they won the quarterfinal against Brazil 5-3 to get into the semifinals, where they won 2-0 against Japan. And in the final against Russia, they won 3-0 and took the World Championship title for the 4th time. If you want to have a hero of the final game in 2014, where the US won, you can mention Amanda Dennis, because she scored 2 of the 3 goals, although she doesn't throw as much. And you also can mention Asia Miller, because she scored the first goal to make the score 1-0. Next, I mention all players who stood in the lineup of the US team in 2014 when they won the gold medal. That's Jennifer Armbruster, Asia Miller, Amanda Dennis, Jordan Gist, Maribel Hooking, and Eliana Mason. 2018 in Malmö in Sweden, they finished 3rd in the prelim round, and then they had to play against Turkey in the quarterfinals, where they lost 2-12. That was the history of a World Championship. I can tell you that's a very successful history so far. And now we continue with the history of the Paralympic Games. Before I start with that, I want to tell you something in general about the Paralympic Games. First time the Paralympics were held in 1960, and since 1980, the host of the Olympic Games is also the host of the Paralympic Games. Now I talk about the US women's goalball history at the Paralympic Games. We start in 1984 in New York, in their home country. That was the first time ever women's teams competed at the Goalball Paralympic Games. In general, goalball is Paralympic since 1976. In 1984 was the first time ever women's teams competed. The US was a part of history, and they also won the first Paralympic Games. They won the gold medal in 1984, which means that the US women's goalball stands in the history books of the sport goalball because they were the winner of the first time ever women's teams competed at the Paralympic Games. In 1988 in Seoul, in South Korea, we had another historical moment. It was the first time the term Paralympic came into official use. And then the US finished second. In 1992 in Barcelona in Spain, they finished 5th place. 1996 in Atlanta, also in her home country, they won the bronze medal, which means that after 1996 they had all colors of the medals in their collection. In 2000 in Sydney in Australia, they finished 6th place. In 2004 in Athens in Greece, they won the silver medal. Now we come to 2008 in Beijing, China, where they played in the final against China, and it was an electrifying game because the lead of the game changed for 5 times, and almost before the end the deciding goal was scored by Asia Miller for the US to make the score 6-5, and it was in the last minute. So that was the deciding moment for the US to win the Paralympic title for the second time. 2012 in London, they also had a very dark chapter of their history because they were beaten in the quarterfinal by China. They lost 0-5. It was in a way unlucky because in the prelim round they finished 4th place. Although they won 2 games, 6 points. Japan and Sweden were before them with 7 points because Japan and Sweden played a draw. If some of them both would have won the game, the US would have finished at 3rd place because the goal difference from the US were +5, the goal difference of Japan +2, and of Sweden 0. Which means that the US would have been better because of the better goal difference. 2016 in Rio, in Brazil. They finished the prelim round as second place. They lost their opening game against Brazil 3-7, but after that they had 3 victories. The first victory over Algeria, 10-0. Although they actually didn't play because Algeria wasn't there. Algeria missed connecting flights, so they were not possible to arrive at the Paralympic Games when they were started. And the rule says if a team isn't there, the other team wins 10-0. Then they had another victory over Japan, 5-3. And don't forget the victory over Israel with 7-3. So they went to the quarterfinal and played against Canada, where they won 2-0, to play in the semi-final against Turkey. That game was as clear as I told you about the World Championship 2018. The US lost the game 1-11 against Turkey. So they played in the bronze medal game against Brazil. Remember, the US were already beaten by Brazil in this tournament directly in the opening game. But I can tell you the bronze medal game was another game than the prelim round game. It was a very close game. The US scored the first goal by Jennifer Armbruster with a penalty shot. After that, Jennifer Armbruster scored the second goal. Brazil fighted back with a 1-2. Then Jennifer Armbruster scored another penalty to make the score 3-1. Brazil fighted back with a 2-3, but that wasn't enough. The US won 3-2 and won the bronze medal at the Paralympic Games in 2016. That's it. That was the history of the past of the US. We see that it was a very successful past so far. They had 2 dark chapters in 1994 and in 2012. But most of the time they were successful. They won many medals in the past, and the US is also the team who won the most medals in Goalball Paralympic history. If you look on the last tournaments, for sure, in 2018, the World Championship, that wasn't successful because they lost in the quarterfinal. But look, for example, in 2016 in Rio, the last Paralympic Games, they won the bronze medal, lost in the semi-final by the mercy rule against Turkey, right? But nevertheless, I think the US made fantastic Paralympics competition in 2016. And also, if you look on the World Games 2019, the international qualifier for the Paralympic Games in Tokyo, in Fort Wayne, they took the silver medal. They lost the final against China 3-5, but they won the silver medal. And also in Lima 2019 at the Pan American Games, they won all their prelim games, including a 4-2 victory over Brazil. And in the final against Brazil, they got into the overtime. The final score were 3-3, and Brazil won the game in the end, but nevertheless, that was the second place for the US. That means you must calculate the US for winning the title because of their history and because of the players they have. Now I talk about the players who will play in Tokyo for the US. That are Lisa Tchaikovsky, Aisha Miller, Amanda Dennis, Mary Byhuking, Eliana Mason, and Mandy Cook. Lisa Tchaikovsky will compete on her 6th Paralympic Games. She already played goalball for over 20 years. Aisha Miller will also compete on her 6th Paralympic Games. As far as I said, she was the hero at the Paralympic Games 2008 because she scored the final goal for the 6-5 win over China. And about Lisa Tchaikovsky, I can tell you that she was the center player at the USA women's goalball team that competed in 2008 at the Paralympic Games. So she also had an important role for the Paralympic win 2008. In general, every teammate has a role in the team because goalball is a team sport and you can't win alone. So everyone matters in the team. But yeah, Lisa Tchaikovsky had an important role because the center player in goalball is the important role of a field. Because you're the defense coordinator. So yeah, this both you have to mention if you want to mention heroes for the title in 2008. Next, I talk about Amanda Dennis. She will compete on her 3rd Paralympic Games. As far as I said, she was a hero of the World Championship 2014 with her 2 golds of the 3 golds when she was 20 years old. And her first Paralympic experience she had 2012 in London when she was 18 years old. So yeah, she started very early and now she's the center player in the starting 3 of the US. And in my opinion, she's the best player in the US women's goalball team and also the best female player in the whole world. So she has a very important role for the team. Eliana Mason will compete on her 2nd Paralympic Games. She already played in Rio 2016. And she's also a part of the starting 3 in the simple pass on the left ring. And she scored many deciding goals in deciding games. So she's also important for the team. Mary Byhuking compete on her 2nd Paralympic Games. Her first experience in Rio 2016 when she was 19 years old. In Rio she was, and also in Tokyo she is the youngest and shortest member of the USA women's goalball team. Her position is the center position. As far as I said, Amanda Dennis will play at the center position for the USA women's goalball. I don't know how the coach will decide for Tokyo, but in the simple past, Mary Byhuking was a substitute player for the US women's goalball team. but that isn't bad. That doesn't mean that she has no worth. Definitely not. But I will think also in Tokyo she will not play in the starting three, but that doesn't mean that she will never play in Tokyo. A second. The last one is Mandy Cook. For her, that's the first Paralympic Games. And I can tell you as much about her because I saw her playing in the past. I'm sorry for that. The head coach of the team is Jake Jakowski. That's also an interesting role of the team because that will also be his first Paralympic experience in Tokyo, because at the last Paralympic Games in Rio he wasn't the coach yet. Then the coach was Ken Armbruster, but now he's the head coach, and yeah, we shall see how he managed it at his first Paralympic Games as head coach. I think that's all about the US. Before I will end this video, I wish the US all the best, that they reach her goals they have. And yeah, in less than 50 days the Paralympic Games will start, and then we shall see what the US women's goalball team will reach at the Games. I don't tell you exactly what I think about the Paralympic Games because that's another video I'll create after I've portrayed the other team in the women's division, which I already have to do. Now I will end this video. We reach the end. And yeah, thanks for watching me. And the next time we are back with the last team at the women's division at the Paralympic Games 2021 in Tokyo. And yeah, after that I come with the video predictions, how the Paralympic Games of the women's division will run. And yeah, and then we are at the end of the Paralympic Games in women's division. So thanks for watching me and see you next time. Goodbye.